Hello everyone, this is part 37 of What If Naruto Was Adopted by Kakashi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Orochimaru listened to the reports on the Leaf and Suna ninjas that had entered his area and that they had linked up with his old teammate Jiraiya. They were getting close to his current location, but they seemed to be searching the area in a standard grid. It meant that they only had a rough idea of where this base might be. Still, even if they found this base, it wouldn't hinder his plans. This was just one of many bases he had scattered around the known nations. He had spent years setting up his network of ninja and secret facilities after he had left his village. There was another reason why he was eager for this group to get just a bit closer, the first being that the boy that contained the QB was here. The brat had cost him his revenge against the Hokage after he had actually blown up the building they had been fighting on. He had to admit that the tactic had been inventive and not something most would even think about. But the boy had to die because of that, and also because it would get in the way of the plans of the Akatsuki. He had no love for that group after he had left, and their plans he knew would get in the way of his plans. He wasn't sure what their ultimate goal was, but he had a feeling it would be troubling for him. So dealing with the boy would set that back, but of course the main thing he was focused on was that Sasuke was getting closer. The boy would make for a great new body for him to use with the power of the Sharingan. He would learn more jutsu in a few years than he could in 2 decades. The knowledge and power he would obtain could make him the most powerful ninja in the world. The tough part would be Jiraiya. He would have to deal with him himself, as he couldn't let anyone else, because he knew full well the kind of ninja his old teammate was. He dismissed the messenger away with a wave of his hand as he looked to Kabuto standing there. He was a person that Orochimaru could always count on, and looking at the young boy he could see that intelligent mind already working on the same problems as he was. I take it we will need the sound for? Kabuto asked the snake Sannin. Orochimaru grinned just as he was thinking just that. He wanted to make sure that they learned when you hunt for snakes they can strike quickly without warning if you weren't careful. Another idea came to mind as well. How is Kimimaro holding up? Orochimaru asked him. Kabuto thought about it. I've extended his life as far as I can, but the next time I take him off life support he will live only for a day more, maybe less if he pushes himself. If he stays where he is, maybe a few more months, but eventually his body will fail him. Then perhaps it's time for him to go out in a blaze of glory. I want him woken up and assigned to kill the 2 Jinchuriki that are in the group. I don't want those 2 to leave here alive no matter the cost. He stressed that last part out to him. Tell him those words exactly. Yes, Orochimaru-sama, he bowed. I'll deal with Jiraiya and hopefully Kakashi Hatake. Those 2 will be the most dangerous opponents. He continued on. I want you to prepare for Sasuke. His seal will need to be grown to the 2nd phase as soon as we retrieve him, whether he wants to come or not. You think that he'll turn down the offer for power? Orochimaru narrowed his eyes. My spies that are still in the village have said that his behavior hasn't changed much. Strange how I felt that the offer for power would be too tempting for him to give up, but something must have interfered with my calculations. It's no matter, he got away before but not this time. Have the sound 4 make the offer, but if he refuses they are to take him alive. Damages? He asked him. As long as his eyes are unharmed I can fix anything else wrong with his body, the snake Sannin spoke. Now let us prepare for our guests. -3 hours later, 2 miles away. Man, this is boring, Naruto moaned as the group made their way through the thick forests. Are you sure they're supposed to be in here? For the last time, yes. Jiraiya looked to Kakashi. How do you get him to stop asking that? Kakashi just shrugged. I've learned to tune it out, plus it helps to keep him busy. Some father you are, Jiraiya grumbled as he ran his hand through his long white hair. This was one of the reasons he didn't like to work with kids. He had no experience in handling them, and a hyperactive one like Naruto tried his patience sometimes. He would give the kids something to do if only there was something to do. At the moment they were making their way through the large forest that they were searching through. So far there were no obvious signs of people being through here, at least not in great numbers. They found no supply routes which any kind of large facility or small village would need. No secret signs for ninja coming home to show the way or anything else that he knew Orochimaru used before. For years he had been hunting down his old teammates, so he had gotten pretty good at figuring out the signs of Orochimaru's presence in an area. He was starting to wonder if maybe his information might have been off. It was standard procedure to throw out false information here and there to muddy the waters, but no, he was certain he got the right information. Plus his gut was telling him they were onto something. He stopped he pulled out a map of the area as everyone gathered around him. The map had drawings on it of a grid with a few X marks in a few areas that they had already searched. Alright, I think if we stick to a search area next to each other we should be able to make this go quickly. He told them, not voicing the thought that the longer they were here the more likely they would already be found if they weren't already. It was a risk, but this was a search mission after all. If you find anything, get back to this point. He pointed to an area on the map that was just in front of them. Don't engage the enemy unless it's necessary. If they find you and know who you are, you might have to deal with them to prevent them from sounding the alarm, but if you're outnumbered or outclassed then just run. Get to here, and if you have to set off an explosion tag. It will alert the whole area, but by that point it will be too late anyway, and I'd rather we get everyone out alive if possible. Teams of 2. Kakashi asked, although he had a pretty good idea of the answer. Jiraiya nodded as he had thought of the teams a while ago. You and I will be going right down the middle and a little ahead. Sakura and Sasuke will take the left. Temari and Kankuro will take the right. Wait, what about Gaara and me? Naruto asked. You get to cover our asses in case they already have people circled around us coming up from behind. Jiraiya told him seriously. Naruto wanted to protest, but his dad told him the importance of certain formations and the rear guard was always important. He would have preferred to be up where the action would be, but he nodded, biting his tongue. He was a Chunin now and he knew he had to start acting like one if he ever wanted to be Hokage. Didn't mean he had to like it, of course, but he would go with the plan, as the only problem he had was that he was in the back. With that settled, the teams moved out to start their search. Temari and Kankuro. The two siblings had been searching the forest area for some time now, but so far there was no luck in finding any kind of clue, sign, or even running into any enemy forces for about an hour since they started. They kept to the tree branches to have the high ground while doing their searching. They took a moment to stop on one of the larger branches. That old guy sure that we've got the right area? Kankuro asked his older sister. He's one of the most legendary ninjas still alive, Temari told him. If he thinks they are here, it's a good chance they are, even if he is a major pervert. She said the last part dryly. Kankuro smirked at that. You think it was a good idea to leave Gaara alone back there? We've always had to keep an eye on him, and you know that he doesn't work well with others. They had always worked together mainly because no one else would work with Gaara, and the few times their team had worked with others there might have been a few friendly fire accidents. Gaara had been extremely hard to work with even on the best of days. Temari knew full well what her brother was talking about. I know, but that Naruto guy seems to actually get along with him. In fact, Gaara has been pretty different since the leaf, and I know he had some kind of talk with Naruto before we left. She had no idea what those two had talked about, but after it Gaara had been different. But whatever the reason, her youngest brother had been a lot better these days. She was about to say something else when she froze. She cast a quick look to Kankuro as he was eyeing the area too. Something was off, as their instincts were telling them that something was wrong. Temari didn't see anything, but she listened carefully, and that was when she noticed it. When in the forest there usually was some kind of animal life, normally birds, but they were all silent. Something was scaring them off as she gently reached for her fan behind her back. That was when she heard the familiar whistle of a kunai being thrown at them. She turned her back to take the weapon on the metal of her fan. It was a risky move, but she pulled it off as the kunai bounced harmlessly off her giant fan. Both young sand ninja jumped down onto the ground back to back as they tried to find their enemies. Well, looks like these two might been a little skilled after all, a voice from the trees called out. I was sure the blonde wasn't going to dodge that. The other guy doesn't look like much though, a deeper male voice spoke. Big talk coming from guys hiding in the trees. Kankuro yelled out around him as he readied the chakra strings to one of the puppets he had wrapped around his back. He had brought two of his puppets for this mission, as well as a couple hidden in a scroll he had packed away. What do you say we go introduce ourselves before we kill them? One of the voices asked. I don't mind, they should know the faces of the ones that killed them, the other voice said. After the two figures came out of hiding, one was in a tree, the other came out from behind a large trunk. One of pair that came out was a pale-looking teen about Temari's age with long light blue hair. Temari noticed something odd about him, as there was something sticking out of the back of his neck, but she couldn't get a good look at it from her angle. The other was a darker-skinned teen, only a little younger, but had dark hair tied up back, but what was really noticeable about him was that for some reason he had a total of 6 arms. She wasn't sure if that was the result of a Kekkei Genkai or some kind of experimentation by Orochimaru. She had heard the rumors about the twisted things he had been guilty of, which was why he was a rogue ninja of the leaf. The name is Kidomaru, the multi-armed boy spoke up, girl with a grin plastered on his face. I'm second leader of the Sound 4, the other boy told them. We've been ordered to kill you by Lord Orochimaru. Okay, looks like the old guy was right, Kankuro said, seeing that they had finally found something. Although they were told not to get seen, it looks like the group had already been targeted. It also looked like they weren't going to get out of this without a fight. Kakashi and Jiraiya. The two seasoned ninja of the group had moved on ahead as Jiraiya scanned the area. If Orochimaru did have a base or something in this area, then it would lead to it. But there was no major traffic signs, and to him that was disappointing. That most likely meant that it wasn't a major base in this nation, which confirmed that this wasn't where the main Sound village was. That worried him, because that most likely meant that Orochimaru was keeping his village extremely secret, or it was split up. He knew how his old teammate thought, and Orochimaru was very scary given how smart he was. He doubted that the man would do anything simple with a whole village under his command, which was a scary enough thought for him as it was. Although now that the world knew that the Sound village was run by a rogue ninja and was wanted by two of the great nations, it would stand to reason that the village wouldn't be easy to find. Plus, given Orochimaru's reputation, he wouldn't be surprised if the village was filled with all kinds of ninja that he seduced, those that wanted power, or were already in trouble with their village and needed a way out. Jiraiya and Kakashi were in mid-jump when suddenly several large snakes were summoned out of thin air and attacked them. The snakes were massive in size, nearly the same size as the one that Naruto had met in the Forest of Death. Both leaf ninja nearly were bitten in half by the large reptiles. Jiraiya saw one of them coming for him and managed a kick to the snout that he used to launch himself higher up. Kakashi used a palm strike to achieve the same effect, as both were in air. Their hand seals were quick, as both used fire techniques to burn the summoned animals. The fire engulfed their enemies as the snakes cried out before disappearing, going back to where they had come from. Both ninja landed, although Jiraiya sure felt the impact in his knees. He hated getting old as he slowly got up, looking around. Alright, come on out, Orochimaru, he spoke out, knowing that only one person could have summoned snakes of that size. Both waited, but he heard the telltale laugh of Orochimaru as the man seemed to emerge right out of the trunk of a tree. I see old age hasn't slowed down your reflexes, old friend, as my little welcoming gift showed me that. So what do I take this visit? I doubt you were just in the neighborhood and just wanted to catch up on old times. He grinned at his old friend and enemy. Although he was showing confidence, he never underestimated Jiraiya. There were only a handful of people that could keep up with him, and he was one of them. But he did have the advantage, where Jiraiya was an old man now and not in his prime. Orochimaru's technique to put himself into younger bodies kept him young and strong. If things got out of hand, he would just have to wear the old man down and then strike him down once and for all. He cast his look to Kakashi, making it look like he hadn't noticed him there. Ah, Kakashi Hatake, we meet again. Sorry I didn't see you over there. Do you plan on joining this fight, or will you just stand there like the last time we met? He chuckled, remembering how the man had been so impotent to do anything as he met with him during the Chunin exams after he had put that simple counter seal on the curse mark. You honestly thought that the leaf of sand would just let you go without trying to make you answer for what you did? Jiraiya asked him. You've turned the power of 2 whole villages against you. Orochimaru only shrugged it off. A small price to pay, although I have to admit that boy messed up my plan to kill that old fool. He turned to Kakashi. I sent a very special ninja of mine to deal with him and that other Jinchuriki boy from Suna. Kakashi stiffened and part of him wanted to go, but he knew he couldn't. He couldn't turn his back to the enemy, especially not a deadly one like this. Besides, he had faith in Naruto. He had an ability to find unique ways out of trouble. Of course, he also had the ability to get into a lot of trouble as well. He just hoped that Naruto would be able to pull off another victory. Last time Kakashi knew he wouldn't have been able to do anything against Orochimaru, but with Jiraiya here there was a chance that he could try something. It was something he didn't use because of the danger of it. He had figured it out by accident years ago, and just using it once had put him into the hospital with chakra exhaustion in a fight that was suicide, and it took time to do. Kakashi pulled up his headband to expose the Sharingan eye. He would need every advantage he needed in this fight. So ready to fight and die, huh? Well, no matter. Orochimaru paid him no mind as he locked eyes with Jiraiya. So then, old friend, shall we see how much age has dulled your skills? You might be surprised to find that age has sharpened a few of my skills, the Toad Sage told him confidently. Sakura and Sasuke. Sakura was making a mental note of how far they were as well as a count of how long they had been away. By her calculations, if everything was going smoothly, they should all be about equal distance apart. She was also scanning the area for anything that could be a clue, but so far nothing. The two of them were silent, but it wasn't an awkward one. Before, she would be all awkward around him when they were alone in the past, maybe because she had been always trying to get him to notice her. Now though, when she stopped trying too hard, things had improved, plus she remembered those lessons about boys from Anko, those helped. So instead of trying so hard, she went the opposite way and tried to lure him in by being more professional and showing she was a strong female ninja. Apparently it was working, as she noticed little times when Sasuke cast little looks her way. On the outside she showed no reaction, but her inner self was almost doing cartwheels. If she kept this up, she could just get him to ask her out for once. They paused for a moment together as they both took a small sip of water from a small canteen in one of their pouches. Sasuke looked around, and although there was no reason for it, he felt this odd sensation. It was almost like he could feel a presence near them as his hand went to rub the curse's seal on his neck. The counter seal on it kept it dormant as long as Sasuke's will made it like that, but every now and again he could almost feel something from it. Now, however, he felt something like a small tug from it. He wasn't sure if it was in his mind or maybe he should take it as a warning. He listened intently to the forest around them, and something did seem off. It was a little too quiet, and he suddenly felt like they weren't alone. He gently tapped Sakura twice on her arm. She looked at him with a question on her face but saw his reaction. She instantly figured out that he sensed trouble in the area as one of her hands towards a set of tools on her new vest. Sasuke slowly went to where he kept a kunai, and in a quick and fluid movement he turned and flung the weapon towards where he sensed the danger. He saw the blade go into the branches of a tree as two figures jumped out and landed onto the ground. It was a boy and a girl in clothing they remembered was very similar to the Sound Ninja. The girl among them had long red spiky hair, the other was a very large boy that put Choji to shame from his size, and not all of it was fat either. He had darker skin with some orange hair. Looks like we were found out, Sakura commented. Do you think the others are too? They might be. Sasuke stared hard at the two ninja. I don't see why he wants the boy, the large Sound Ninja spoke up, cranking his neck in preparations for the fight. He doesn't look like much to me. It doesn't matter, the girl said, annoyed. Orochimaru wants him alive, so we're to take him alive, just be sure not to damage him too much. The girl we can kill, I don't think he'll care about her. That's a girl. She's so flat, I thought she was a boy with a strange hair color, the large boy joked at Sakura's expense. Sakura for her part had an anger tick forming as her eyes were glaring bloody murder at him. Although she didn't say anything, in her Sakura was having a field day cursing him out like a sailor. It took every shred of self-control she had to not repeat all that out loud. Kill that fat bastard. Inner Sakura yelled out finally in her mind. Make him pay for insulting us, Shanaro. Sasuke could feel just how angry Sakura was and knew that she shouldn't go into a fight angry like that, or else she would make a mistake. Plus the big guy looked to be stronger, and although he respected how far Sakura had come so far as a ninja, he was still stronger than her. I'll take the big guy. Sakura, I want you to take on the girl, he told her, and jumped down from their position and was already walking towards his chosen opponent before Sakura could have any kind of protest. She gave an annoyed huff but joined him on the ground to face the red-headed girl opposite her. The girl looked Sakura over but didn't seem to think much of the pink-haired girl. Tell you what, you just lay down and die and I'll make it quick. Sakura glared at the girl and decided to play a girl card at the moment. She made a big deal of looking over her clothing. That outfit really makes you look fat, you know that. What did you say, you little bitch? She snarled at her. My name is Tayuya, and just for that I'm going to carve my name into that large forehead of yours. Sasuke heard that and winced. He knew that Sakura had a thing about her forehead, and judging by the killing intent from her, he was rethinking his choice of enemies. Both girls looked ready to tear into each other at the drop of a hat. But he had his own problem to deal with as he looked up at the big guy in front of him. The name is Jirobo, but we already know who you are, Sasuke Uchiha, he told him, uncrossing his arms. I'm going to give you this one chance, come with us or else I'll break your body and take you back as a ragdoll. Sasuke didn't even waste a moment before he gave his answer, here's my counter offer. With that he rushed forward, pulling his sword out as he launched his first attack. Naruto and Gaara. Naruto signed as he looked around for the 10th time in their area. They had stopped at the moment to check every now and again to see if they were being followed or someone was coming up behind them. Gaara had those strange sand-eye things spread out as Naruto also had a few of his shadow clones. They were supposed to be quiet and stay out of sight, and as soon as something was to come up then they were to dispel and warn him. So far nothing was going on and he was starting to get bored. Gaara wasn't much of a conversationalist either. The red-haired boy was as quiet as ever, but at least he wasn't giving off that creepy vibe like he had when he first met the boy. In fact, he kind of seemed to have mellowed out slightly. Well, it was slightly, the boy still was kind of rigid and you couldn't really tell what he was thinking. So, how have things been for you since the exams? Naruto asked, trying to break the silence with anything. Gaara was silent a moment before actually saying something. The villagers still fear me. Naruto felt sympathy for him about that. Even though he was the adopted son of Kakashi, it had taken time for the villagers to warm up to him. Although after it was known he helped save the Hokage, he noticed a lot less of the people who used to give him cold looks. Well, trust me, it takes time. He tried to offer him some advice on the matter. You can't expect people to suddenly change how they view you. You just have to keep at it and don't ever stop. A lot of people didn't like me because I got that fox inside of me, but lately things have been better. One day you'll prove yourself to everyone, you just got to keep at it. I plan to get the entire village behind me when I become Hokage. Gaara thought about it and nodded his head as it made some sense to him. He had spent years terrorizing the village, it would take time for them to see that he was trying to be different now. He found that he didn't have to be alone anymore, that he didn't have to love himself, because no one else would. In the time he had left the village, he had tried to repair his relationship with his siblings and found that he did have others that cared for him. Even if he had to do it one person at a time, in that moment Gaara felt that he would show the village who he was, that he wasn't the monster he had been but a true ninja of the sand. Naruto suddenly jerked as a clone had been taken out. At first he thought maybe the clone had tripped or something, but there had been a slight feeling of pain and shock as he tried to remember the sensation, but when a clone dispelled, the final sensations were always hard to remember. Then suddenly another one was gone and a third followed. Crap, we got company. Naruto looked around, but he wasn't sure which clones had been taken out. They had been killed way too fast, plus there were no markers in the forest to tell which direction those clones went before being taken out. Gaara closed his eyes as he tried to use those eyes made of sand to try and find whoever it might be, but one of them was suddenly destroyed. Unlike Naruto, Gaara knew where his sand was at all times. He cast his eyes to where the enemy was coming. That way, Gaara pointed out the location to Naruto. Both ninja waited to see who was going to show up. It was a tense moment until someone walked out of the forest in front of them. He looked at them with a neutral expression as he walked out with no fear. What they didn't know was that a man who knew he was going to die and accepted it, didn't fear much after that. The teen that walked out looked to be a little older than the two of them and wearing sound ninja clothing. They could see that he had white hair and pale features. They also noticed that he had 2 red spots painted on his forehead with matching color painted around his eyes. There was also this strange symbol just below his neckline, 3 little curved lines pointing to an imaginary center. My name is Kimimaro, the young man spoke to them, showing no emotion on his face. I'm sorry, but you both have to die. There was a pause before Naruto yelled back at the teen, oh yeah. Well, I say like hell you are, there are 2 of us and only one of you, so what do you say about that? Kimimaro only responded by growing bones out of his skin as he thrust his arms out and a dozen small but very sharp bones flew out at them. Gaara stood his ground on the branch they shared, making a sand wall to block the attack while Naruto yelped and fell back. He was able to grab the branch before pulling himself up as the improvised weapons flew over his head. Gaara looked down at Naruto but said nothing, but his look spoke volumes. Okay, how was I supposed to know he had some kind of freaky power? Naruto muttered, getting up and then glaring at the redhead and yelled. And why didn't you make one of those sand wall things for me too? Sorry, not used to protecting others, Gaara told him. For a moment Naruto wasn't sure if Gaara was being honest or had just insulted him. It was really hard to tell with the boy as his face was always so impassive. We're going to have a talk after this about teamwork, Naruto told him. Dodge. What do you mean? Naruto just managed to dodge the next attack. You really shouldn't take your focus off an enemy like that. Not helping. Naruto yelled out as he jumped to the ground and pulled the short sword from his back. Alright, let's see what this guy is made of. Nearby, two clocked figures had been walking through the forests for 20 minutes now. They had been following the slight trail of their quarry for most of the day. The forests were filled with the sounds of birds or other animals, the smells of the trees and plants filled the air. For normal people this might have been a pleasant day to walk through nature, but these two were on a mission. One of them knelt down to look at the tracks in the ground. They split up here. The larger one grunted, so which ones do we go with? The partner looked at the ground. The larger prints were the adults, so they didn't need to deal with them. One set looked to be an older pair, still young but both carrying something large given the depths their footprints showed. The other sets were the smallest of them, also it was one of those two. He pointed it out to his larger partner. You take that set that it ahead of us. I think they are the rearguard. I'll take the other ones that look to be flanking that way. And if you're wrong, he just shrugged, then deal with them and find me and we'll see if we can't track down our targets. His partner grinned, showing his shark-like teeth. About time we had some fun given how long it's taken to catch up to them. Plus my sword could use something to eat soon. Remember, we need our targets alive. I know, but they just have to be breathing right. The leader doesn't need them intact, so if they're messed up but still alive that should be good. The two figures split off to find their own targets into the large forest. In another time or place Kakashi might have been impressed with seeing a battle between two legends like Orochimaru and Jiraiya, but now was not that time, especially since he was currently trying not to get eaten by a huge snake summons. Kakashi was leaping from tree to tree as a snake, large enough to eat him in one go, was chasing him. Apparently he wasn't worth the effort to fight firsthand, or he was just an annoyance. Kakashi wasn't sure what was more insulting, but at the moment he had more important things to worry about than his hurt pride. He knew enough about snakes from training with Anko to know how they moved and hunted, so he had been able to keep ahead of the beast. He landed and knew that he couldn't keep this up for long, so crouching down he already started his hand seals as he waited, making himself bait. He didn't have to wait long as the serpent shot out at him, its jaws wide open. Kakashi jumped as high as he could in the last possible moment. For a split second there he had been afraid that he had waited too long as he felt the rush of the large snake go by him. He could feel the bottom of his feet just grave the scales of its back. He kept up the hand seals as he finished just as his feet planted on the trunk of the tree and pushed off. He looked as the snake was trying to turn quickly, but Kakashi was finished. The electrical energy had been gathered as he aimed for the neck area as the head was out of range. Although he would have to remember to ask Anko where the neck of a snake really was. Reikiri, he shouted using the legendary attack of his own making. People said he had cut a bolt of lightning with this technique. Well, that story wasn't technically true, but only he knew the full story behind that. His attack was, however, good enough to at least cut through the flesh of the snake as the head and part of it was severed, and a split second later it disappeared. Kakashi was able to take a breather as he saw Orochimaru and Jiraiya still battling it out, as he was not even registering on their radar. That was just as well for him, as he took a moment to find a decent advantage. Now was the perfect time to try out a technique he hadn't used in actual combat. Mainly because it was too dangerous for him, as it took a long time to charge up, and so far he could only use it once before all his chakra ran out. He had meant to train it even more and increase his chakra levels, but being a full-time parent and teacher didn't allow for him to train until he dropped that, and he honestly had no need to train this technique until now, but looking at how things were he was seriously reconsidering it. He sat down hidden by the leaves of a tree as he closed his Sharingan eye as he put his hands into a seal and concentrated. Even though he had the Sharingan, he wasn't an Uchiha, so there was knowledge he just didn't have. The technique he had discovered by accident, as the day he had lost a good friend something had happened. To this day he still couldn't understand what happened that day. He had blacked out, but something had happened to his eye. It had taken him months to figure it out and just as long to figure out what to do with it. Which had caused him to pass out from its use, but that had been years ago. He was confident he could pull this off at least once, well, fairly confident he just needed an opening. You've gotten slow with age, Jiraiya. Orochimaru smirked as he extended an arm like a snake to strike at the toad sage. The white-haired old friend of his jumped out of the way to counter with a kunai thrown to make Orochimaru move. What are you talking about? I'm just hitting my prime, Jiraiya told him, whipping his long hair around like a tail as several large strands of spiky hair flew out like solid pieces of iron. Maybe if you didn't keep stealing the bodies of others to stay off death, you'd get some real wisdom with actual age. I'll stick with my vast knowledge of jutsu, Orochimaru countered, plus the day will soon come when you're nothing but a bag of bones in the ground and I'll still be alive and stronger than ever. If you call what you do, living, that is, Jiraiya muttered to himself. He was disgusted with Orochimaru's unnatural way of living. Plus he had to admit that Orochimaru was just as fast as he had been over 20 years ago, and although Jiraiya knew he wasn't over the hill yet, he had slowed. He could feel the aches and pains that came with a long life as a ninja, the injuries that piled up over time wore you down. He wasn't as fast or strong as he had been in the peak of his youth, but he did have something he hadn't back then. He had much more experience and knowledge, his skills were sharper, and he had learned patience. The only problem was that Orochimaru had gained all that while keeping a younger body. Things were certainly not in his favor, but then Jiraiya always knew he never did things the easy way, so there was no point in starting now. He grinned to himself, hoping that whatever Kakashi was up to would help turn the tide. He knew the man was back there in the trees just waiting for an opening of some kind. Well, whatever kind of opening the man needed, Jiraiya would make sure that he got it. Naruto and Gaara. Naruto had figured that with Gaara by his side this Kimimaro guy wouldn't stand a chance. That had been 15 minutes ago, and he was quickly rethinking that. So far he had sent nearly an army of clones against the guy and he just mowed them down like they were nothing. Then again, the guy could grow freaking bone weapons out of any part of his body, something that Naruto felt was cheating. His dad had told him to use his clones to study an opponent, but the only thing he could figure out was that the guy was a lot faster and stronger than he looked. In a straight-up fight, Naruto knew he would lose. The guy was just too good and he fought like a man with nothing to lose. He barely defended at all and he just went all out on his attacks. Gaara wasn't doing much better as the young man avoided Gaara's sand attacks. In fact, Naruto thought that he saw the red-headed boy actually getting frustrated. Damn it, this sucks, Naruto shouted out as he had to make even more clones. Their enemy was going through them nearly as fast as he could make them. Although he had a lot of chakra, he had never seen just how many he could make at one time. Of course he was pretty sure this many wasn't a problem, but they couldn't keep this up. Eventually one of them would run out of chakra, but the boy they were fighting was still going strong. He is a bit annoying in not dying, Gaara admitted. I have walked with death for so long now I no longer fear it. I have embraced my death, Kimimaro stated, hearing their conversation as he kicked another clone out of existence and quickly dodged Gaara's attack. As long as my death can serve a purpose for Orochimaru-sama, then I will gladly walk into death's embrace. Great, strong and crazy, Naruto muttered to himself. They really needed something to throw at this team. Hey, keep him busy for a second. Gaara nodded as he gestured with his hands, making his sand attack from several different directions. Kimimaro with great skill and agility dodged and attacked with blades made of bone. Although the blades did cut the sand, it only slowed it down as Gaara kept the rest of it going. While this was going on, Naruto was gathering his chakra. He created several more clones as he sent them against the team. You will not stop me with such things, Kimimaro told him, seeing the new clones. He easily dispatched two of them, but when the third attacked he noticed something. This one had come straight at him, but it was when he was attacking that something seemed odd. There was no defense at all and he felt something dangerous about this one. Got ya, the clone said, and instead of disappearing this clone exploded. Yeah, didn't know I could make those, did you? Naruto shouted out, grinning under his mask. But when the smoke from the explosion and other clones being caught in the explosion was gone, there was a large bone shield. Oh come on. Naruto got ready to make more. If he had to, he would send a whole group of explosive clones at him. There was no way his bones could be hard enough to survive that. Kimimaro felt the pain from the explosion. Although he had been saved from most of the effects, he still felt some damage from it. His body wouldn't hold out much longer and he needed to take this more serious as he could guess what Naruto would try next. Since he was going to die anyway, he had to go all out. He released the seal on his chest as black lines started to cover his body as he activated the first level. Already the pain was being numbed as his body was filled with energy. Oh man, I don't know what he did, but I don't like it, Naruto moaned out as their enemy suddenly leapt at them with a lot more speed and agility than he had a moment ago. I knew it was bad, Naruto shouted out as he and Gaara jumped away as the boy actually smashed through the thick branch. More bones came out of him, sticking out like a demonic porcupine as he ran at Naruto. Of course he goes for me, Naruto muttered, putting his blade. Take this, wind blade. He sent the chakra through the short sword as a thin blade of wind chakra was sent flying at their enemy. For Kimimaro, the attack seemed slowed down thanks to his increased reaction time. He dodged the chakra as it passed by him. He then created a large lance of his bones ready to impale Naruto, but it never got that close. Just as it was about to hit him, a wall of sand came up and stopped the attack. Thanks, Gaara, Naruto called out, jumping over the wall and tried an attack from above, but the bones on Kimimaro's back blocked his blade. He made a small cut in them, but nothing really deep. He frowned. Those bones were a lot tougher than he thought they would be. He quickly jumped out of the way from the counter-attack as Gaara sent out small balls of sand like bullets. Kimimaro took several hits to his skin as the sand felt more like rocks slamming into his body than sand. He took a knee as he looked at the two of them. It looked like he would have to go all out in order to deal with this problem. He was fine with that, as long as his mission was complete, then it would be all worth it. He was preparing to unleash his second level of the seal with a laugh disrupted them all. Well, ain't this just a sight? A laughing voice called out as they all looked at the newcomer. Kisame had just walked into this fight after he and Itachi split up. His sword had been twitching into this direction as some nice chakra was calling out to his wrapped-up sword. When he came in and saw who was fighting, he felt it was his lucky day. So he came out walking with his sword resting on his shoulder, grinning like a shark. Oh crap, you got to be kidding me, Naruto really didn't believe it. He knew the clothing the man was wearing, although he had never seen him in person. He had been filled in on a lot of details by Jiraiya during the time he spent with him. So he knew what to look out for. He also remembered that Jiraiya told him that if he was ever face to face with an Akatsuki member, he was to just run. Who are you? Kimimaro didn't like the battle being interrupted, but he needed to know if this man was a threat or not. But the look on his blue shark-like face, he could feel a sense of danger from the man. He had a look of a man whose hands were covered in the blood of others. You don't know of the famous Kisame Hoshigaki? Well, I'm disappointed, but I guess a runt like you hasn't lived long enough to know much of the world. Kisame told him and then looked to Gaara and Naruto. So both the One Tails and the Nine Tails together, this should be fun. I'm supposed to take you both back, but I think as long as you're breathing that's fine. These two are marked for death by Orochimaru, Kimimaro told him. Ah, so you work for that old slippery snake then? He used to work with us in the past, but then Itachi kicked his ass and he ran with his tails between his legs, Kisame laughed. That wasn't the best thing to do, as Kimimaro would not stand for anyone insulting Orochimaru. You take back those words. Kisame knew he had just touched a nerve. Make me brat, because that old snake is a coward who ran off when he couldn't get Itachi's eyes for his own. Never did care for his pale ass anyway, he never was good enough for our group. Now why don't you get out of here? I have to take them with me. Kimimaro roared out in rage as his mission had just been forgotten for the moment. He would deal with this intruder and then deal with the other two before time ran out. Oh good, I was hoping to spill some blood today. Kisame really did think today was shaping up to be a good day. I don't know what's going on and I really hate to say this, but we should get to the others and warn them as soon as possible while they're busy. Naruto told Gaara. Although he didn't want to just turn tail and run himself, but if one of these guys took down his dad, he knew that he didn't stand much of a chance. Plus there was only one here, there were always supposed to be at least two of them, that meant another was around here as well. He thought about his team and Gaara's siblings. If the other one ran into them, they would be in serious trouble. Gaara looked at him for a quick moment before nodding his head. He wasn't sure who the new enemy was, but Naruto did seem to have an idea. So he went along with Naruto's idea to find the others, as both of them quickly left before either of the other two changed their minds. Sakura and Sasuke. Sasuke had to admit that he didn't like how the fight was going. Although their enemies didn't seem to be that much older than them, they were strong for their age. The large boy he was fighting was like a mountain, and the fact that he used earth techniques seemed to fit. Sakura was holding her own against the redhead, although the girls' fight seemed to have taken on a more personal air to it. Both of them were throwing insults at each other the entire time. Sasuke dodged an attack by Jirobo as he used his sword for a counter. The other boy may be larger, but he was surprisingly agile for his size as he just managed to dodge the sweep of his blade. So far Sasuke was having a hard time trying to get through the boy's defenses, the earth style that the guy was using. Sasuke had tried a few different fire techniques, but always earth was used as either a wall or a shield. To make matters worse, he had just a lot of offensive ones to match. Sasuke had to dodge the hard stones and earth that was sometimes literally thrown at him by the much larger boy. Sasuke knew that he would have to push himself harder to get a decent blow. Already he was planning as his eyes were studying the boy. The earth techniques were something that he had little experience with, although he had read up on them. They were very solid and strong jutsus that had a lot of potential for defense and offenses, he had found out. The trick was that they were limited, they were too rigid to be applied to changes or suddenly shifted like other element types. He had to make the boy commit to an attack and either throw something new and unexpected or just smash through it. The technique that he learned from Kakashi on that 1 month of training between the Chunin exams would be perfect, but he had to be precise. Lightning was perfect to use against earth, so he just had to get just the right opening. Sakura closed the distance between her and the redhead as she brought out her tonfas. She swung with the left as the girl blocked it with a kunai. Sakura didn't stop her movements as she spun around to attack with her right weapon to the girl's side. Tayuya got clipped by the metal weapon as she snarled at the girl. She threw her kunai as Sakura used one of her weapons to swat it away. Tayuya cursed her out as she threw several more small knives at her as Sakura did the same for each and every one. Sakura was glad that Anko had trained her in that, although with Anko she used a lot more and threw them even harder. She had said that if Sakura wanted to use a weapon like the tonfa, she had to learn how to use it to its full effect. Those had been a long and painful training lessons under Anko, but they were showing their results in this battle. You little shank, I'm going to feed you those damn things. Tayuya was getting irritated by the pink-haired girl with how she wasn't going down. Plus she hated that hair, she looked so girly that it made her sick that this was considered a kunoiki. You know, I think I've had enough of that mouth of yours, time to wash it and the rest of you out. Sakura quickly put her weapons away as quickly as she could started her hand seals. Aqua Tower, Sakura shouted out as her palm hit the ground. This was a move she had used in the Chunin exams as a tower of water shot out of the ground as it went at Tayuya at great speed. The sound ninja threw herself to the right as it just passed her and slammed into a tree. There was a crack heard as she looked to see the bark of the tree that it hit had slightly shattered. If that he hit her, Tayuya knew that it would have hurt a lot. Tayuya scowled at the pink-haired girl. She wasn't going to show her up. She was going to bring out her flute and see how the girl liked a little genjutsu work. Unlike most genjutsu that used the eyes or physical touch, hers could be used by sound, something a lot harder to defend against. His was when a pause took place in the battle as everyone took a moment to see how everyone else was doing, both ally and enemy. Sasuke was already planning on several more tactics before he felt a new presence in the area. He hadn't sensed anyone showing up, it was just there like whoever had showed up just wanted to be noticed. He looked around and froze as he felt like someone had just jabbed his chest with their fist and gripped his insides. There, standing there in a black cloak with red clouds, was someone he hadn't seen in years, but despite the new look he hadn't changed much since all those years ago. I'm a little disappointed to see that you haven't killed your enemy yet, Itachi told Sasuke as speaking got the attention of the other three in the battle as they looked up at him. I would have thought you would have come alone a lot more than this. Who the hell are you? Tayuya shouted at him, not liking how someone new showed up. Are you with these wimps, you prissy-looking bastard? Itachi didn't even spare her a glance as he never took his view off Sasuke. Well, little brother, what have you to say for yourself? Sakura's eyes widened as she suddenly realized who it was she was looking at. This was Sasuke's older brother, the one that killed his clan in a single night and put Kakashi-sensei into the hospital. Suddenly she felt the pit of her stomach just drop out of her. If Kakashi couldn't beat him, then what hope did they have? Itachi, I'm going to kill you. Sasuke could only see red where his brother was concerned. Hardly, you can't even handle these two, while showing skill for ones this young, they aren't that powerful. He said in his usual calm tone. The hell did you just say about us? Jirobo shouted out at him. If there was one thing he couldn't stand, it was to be looked down on. They were the elite Sound 4 and they were the personal guard of Orochimaru, handpicked by him and given his personal seal. Well, maybe it was time to show this person what they were made of. Jirobo released his cursed mark as black shapes started to cover his body as he felt the power flowing through him. Let's see you deal with me now. Jirobo with incredible speed rushed at him. The large boy jumped off of several trees as he launched himself into an aerial attack at the man. His fist had just impacted with Itachi when he suddenly became a murder of crows, each one flying away suddenly. What? He couldn't understand at first how it had just happened, but then he felt the cold metal of a kunai against his throat. Itachi was suddenly behind him with the small weapon pressing against the skin. You should have known better than just attack up front like that, Itachi said coldly before slitting the teen's throat with a simple flick of his wrist. Jirobo on reflex his hands went to his throat trying in vain to stop the flow of blood. The markings on his body started to fade as he fell from his spot on the tree. The last thing he saw was the ground coming at him as he crashed into the ground. Itachi turned his gaze to Tayuya, who looked at him with fear. Her mind couldn't just grasp it yet, although she couldn't stand Jirobo. To have him suddenly die like that was shocking. It took her a moment to realize that he was looking at her as her body tensed up and she tried to put up a guard pose, although she wasn't sure what good it would do. Itachi just stood there looking down at her, looking like he was judging her, and found her wanting. If you're not going to run, then you better come at me with all you have. Ach. Fine then, you bastard. Tayuya called on her curse seal as black markings started to cover her body, but she didn't stop there. Once that was done, she took Itachi's advice and went all out with the second level. Her skin darkened as horns grew out of her head as she took on a slightly more demonic look. Tayuya pulled out her flute as she was going to use her strongest attack against him. With a few notes of her flute, three figures came into existence. They were even more demonic looking than her as her three doki came into existence. They were giants standing several feet taller than Tayuya, as each was slightly different. There was one with long hair that hid his face, another was bandaged all over their body, the last one had his eyes covered with a white cloth. All three had their mouths sewn shut. Interesting technique. Itachi hadn't seen a technique like this before, so he was getting curious as how this would play out. Temari and Kankuro. The two siblings fought nearly back to back against their foes. They were used to fighting together, so they didn't need to speak out to plan, but the problem was the two they were fighting were also used as fighting as a team. The battle had been like a dance between the four of them. Kidomaru kept trying to use his webbing to trap Temari, but she kept using her wind techniques to cut him to shreds with her giant fan. For Saken, he had managed to get close to Kankuro early on, and the two were fighting it out in a hand-to-hand battle. Kankuro, although trained in hand-to-hand, never really liked it. He preferred to attack from a distance with his puppets, but this guy hadn't even given him the change to unleash one of the wrapped-up forms he was carrying on his back. All he could do was fight on and hope that he could get some ground when an opening presented itself. Just when the boy did a spinning kick, Kankuro saw an opening and attacked when his opponent's spin was making him face away. He sent out a fist, but the white-haired boy suddenly dodged it. The hell, you got eyes in the back of your head or something? Kankuro jumped back, hoping to get enough distance to pull out one of the puppets on his back. Actually, you're not far off, he is brother. Saken smiled as he looked back at Kankuro. Come on, time to wake up now. He's such a pain to get up as he likes to sleep in a lot. I'm up already, Akon the brother spoke up as the strange lump on the back of his head started to move. Kankuro was shocked to see that there was a second head. He hadn't known what the hell he had been looking at, but the fact that he was fighting a guy with two heads while his sister was fighting a guy with several extra arms and throughout webbing, he figured these two were the biggest freaks he had ever encountered. And his little brother had a demon living inside of him, so to him that was saying something. Time to go to work, brother, Saken spoke up with a smile. Oh, I agree, brother, Akon replied as the twins lashed out as Kankuro. Kankuro let out a small curse as he was attacked yet again. He kept trying to get the distance, but the conjoined twins weren't letting him have his way. Every time he tried to get some space, they would close it, and it kept ending up in a hand-to-hand battle. Although Kankuro did train in hand-to-hand combat, his opponent seemed to be a lot more skilled in that area than him. Slowly he felt his defenses being cut away. He knew it was only a matter of time before he make a mistake, so he decided to make a mistake. He dropped his guard just enough to make it look like he had a hole in his defense, but trying not to make it obvious. Just like he had hoped, they went for it. They batted away his defense as one of them went for a grab with one of their hands. As the twin brothers managed to get a hold of Kankuro as Akon was about to use their special technique, the twins were special in that Akon could send himself into the body of their enemy. This allowed him to take control of the nervous system while his brother Saken could finish him off if needed, although sometimes Akon liked to use their victim's own hands to choke the life out of themselves before going back to his brother. Got you now? Saken smirked as his hand reached out and gripped the puppet user. Go for it, brother. There was a pause as Akon felt something was off. When he merged with another person, he used his chakra that was mixed with his brother's to link with the chakra in their victim. But there was no chakra that he could sense. It was like the man wasn't even there. Saken, something's wrong. He tried to warn him, but in that moment one of the two wrapped up bundles on his back burst open as Kankuro jumped out of it. There were blue lines on his fingers going into the fake version of himself. Those were chakra strings that he used to command his puppets. This was a new technique he had been working on lately. He had found a way to make one of his puppets look exactly like himself as he hid behind it, controlling it. For a puppet user, the puppeteer was the major weakness in this style. If you could bypass the puppet and take out the one controlling it, you won the fight. The puppeteer was nearly defenseless while controlling a puppet, so Kankuro had figured out a way to keep himself safe and make a target at the same time. The fake Kankuro suddenly shed a skin as a wooden puppet was shown. It quickly burst open, its chest extending as it basically gobbled up the twins. It had all happened so fast that they hadn't even had time to react before they were swallowed by darkness. Damn it, break us out of this thing. Akon yelled at his brother. I'm trying. Saken yelled back, but the wood was a lot tougher than it looked, plus he didn't have much in the way of movement in such a cramped space. He would have to see if releasing his curse mark would help in giving him the power to break free. Things never got that far though for the pair. Kankuro was already using the finishing blow. As his hands waved around, the arms and legs disconnected from the main body, each segment seemed to hover in the air as blades jutted out from one end. Time to end this. Kankuro drew his hands together as the blades pierced the puppet like a giant wooden Iron Maiden. There was a pair of screams coming from inside the puppet, but soon it was all quiet again. Damn you. Kidomaru yelled at him. He couldn't believe that the twins had been taken out like that. He fired his webbing at Kankuro as he used his puppets to take the shot. Soon he found his puppets stuck and unable to move for the moment. Crap. Kankuro figured he might be able to cut them free, but he had to use both of his puppets and that was all he had on him. With both of them stuck like this, he didn't have a backup on him as the freak with the multiple arms was coming at him. Well, on second thought, he may not have had another puppet, but he did have something just as good, an older sister. You shouldn't turn your back to an enemy. Temari smirked as she swung her fan with all her strength, sending a large amount of wind slamming into the sound ninja. With that much force, she had actually managed to send him flying off into the trees. She also took down several of the trees as well. The trees broke apart with huge cracking sounds like the bones of giants snapping, and soon the thundering sound of the large severed trees hitting each other and the ground. Temari stood there panting. She had put all the chakra she could into that attack. The force would have been enough to shatter bones. If their enemy survived, it was doubtful he would live for long with the kinds of injuries he most likely got. Still, she paused, scanning the damaged area of the forest for any kind of sound of movement. There wasn't a single sound other than the gentle wind making the branches sway. Think you got him with that, Kankuro told her as he pulled out a kunai, trying to cut the webbing without getting the weapon stuck. Whatever this stuff was, it was just as nasty as actual cobwebs. He was afraid if he messed up he would get his weapon stuck, or worse, his whole hand if he slipped up. Most likely, but keep your guard up. Temari and Kankuro heard the large-scale battle going on ahead of them where Jiraiya and Kakashi had gone. Temari wasn't worried about that. If they went quiet, then she could start to worry. No, it was how silent the others seemed to be. She thought she had heard explosions during the battle from where Naruto and Gaara's position generally were, but it suddenly went silent. We need to hurry, she told him. Well, help me out here, I have to cut them free as I don't know how long this stuff lasts. Temari blew out a frustrated sigh. She could try to use her fan, but if she cut up his dolls, he would be difficult to deal with until he made new ones, plus without them he wasn't as strong. They would need all that they had because she felt that the others would be facing tough fights as well. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.